In my mind, like the big AAA stuff has
The biggest 22 games of the year are out today.
Yes, right. And you can play them anywhere.
That's right.
Should we get into Google Stadia?
Sure, why not?
Okay.
Jeff, you got into Google Stadia.
I mean, a whole new platform has been launched as of today.
Yes, it is
according to our database.
According to our database,
it is a console exclusive.
It has one game that you can't get anywhere else.
It has its own controller.
Yeah,
which is better than I expected.
Not great, but better than
It's like a lot more very average.
I mean, it's not. I wouldn't take it over a DualShock 4 or an Xbox One controller, but it is.
It doesn't. It's not like, oh, this is some bootleg.
Yeah, you don't touch it and go like, this is trash.
Yeah, it's got
like, oh, you could play games on this. I would rather not, but sure.
It's got a pretty solid feel to it.
Yeah,
I don't like the D-pad.
The D-pad's not great. So Google Stadia is a streaming service for playing video games.
Okay, go on.
This
is the first I'm hearing of this. Can you give me the full rundown?
Okay, the internet is okay.
Al Gore,
DARPA.
Okay, Transmission Control Protocol, Internet Protocol.
Yes, that's the one.
Okay,
yeah. Okay, so Stadia is out now. Whatever the fuck that means. People have started getting their emails with their codes, which let them start accessing the service immediately. People are also starting to get their Founders Edition packages in the mail today, which is a controller and a Chromecast Ultra.
Okay.
And
the Chromecast Ultra with a specific
firmware on it,
firmware that isn't available on other.
You cannot just use any old Chromecast Ultra just yet. But that will be the plan.
They need to push a firmware update to existing models.
So that's in a microcosm is like the whole thing with the service is like the weird path you have to walk as to what you can and can't do. In some ways, it worked more than I expected because of all the ways they announced it wasn't going to work. I was surprised when I went to the site in a web browser and was able to load it up. I was amazed that it worked. I was like, oh, I thought this wasn't going to work at launch. Yeah. Like, that's how good of a job they did at, like, making this very confusing.
So what is the unifying interface? Is there a launcher? Is there some kind of dashboard?
There's
is it just a web page?
Well, it depends on what you're looking at. If you go to stadia.com when you're logged in, it just shows you the games you own. And up in the corner, there's a controller button for syncing a controller that doesn't do anything yet because you can't wirelessly use your controller with anything but a Chromecast Ultra right now.
So that doesn't work with a PC.
So you can plug in your controller to a PC.
So that's the only way to use that controller with Stadia on a PC?
Yes.
Just plug it in right now? Okay.
Even if you're using an Android device, you have to plug it into the phone.
Oh, you have to plug it in?
You have to plug it into the phone.
Wow.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Huh.
So there's no...
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Is that something they're changing?
Oh, I'm sure that.
So the idea is that eventually, yes, the idea is that eventually the controller is completely untethered from everything.
Right. Yeah, remember the controller.
The controller is a Wi-Fi device.
Yeah.
So by default, and when you're using it with a Chromecast, when you go through the setup process, you are entering a Wi-Fi password for your controller.
Yeah.
But that only works with that one Chromecast. Any other device, you have to plug it in. And I don't know why, like whatever.
Yeah,
that's a later announcement they made, which so clearly it's like they missed some
couple weeks,
deadline or they fucked something up somewhere along the way.
And but the idea that you couldn't just use Bluetooth with the phone,
I have no idea.
Weird. I don't know.
The phone stuff only works on Android. They do have an iOS app, but it doesn't do the play the game stuff. Like there's even you can buy games, so you have to buy games from a mobile device. I don't even think that there's a desktop version of the store.
You need a phone. They confirmed that in their AMA.
Wait, you can't buy games on a PC with a web browser?
I'm pretty sure they said you need a cell phone.
When I'm logged in to my Stadia account and I'm on their website, it is very focused on here are the games you own and not on here are other games you can buy.
Okay. And so when you're
maybe there's a view to get there, but that they just haven't surfaced yet or whatever. Because that's the other thing is since it's a web page, like when I first got my hands on this stuff, the start a live stream button was there on the web interface. And I think at some point they realized oh shit, we totally don't want people streaming this stuff yet and just removed it. It's still not there also.
That's you mean stream to YouTube?
Right.
Like publicly stream?
I assume so. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah, I just saw that, yes, you need to use a cell phone for game purchases currently.
So if you're on a PC, on the web page, there's just a big
it's a bunch of blocks of the box shots of things you own.
You can
get your friends
from
list.
The page?
If you need to be using Chrome. There's a play button and you click the play button and the Chrome goes full screen and it sits there for about 20 seconds.
Okay.
and then eventually switches over.
Okay,
to
so
the game.
all I was really trying to establish is there's no like Steam Big Picture equivalent on PC or anything like that. There's no. Okay.
No.
It is just a web page.
Yeah, it's a web page.
So the interface I saw you scrolling around in that video was on a Chromecast. Is that right? And that looks more like a traditional console sort of interface.
I mean, yeah, it's limited, you know, because even that, it's just the games you own. And when you scroll all the way over to the right, it's like, want to buy more games? Open your phone. Get your phone.
Wait, they didn't even get the store on there?
Dude. Okay, so
This is like
a game like Mortal Kombat 11 has a built-in store.
Yeah.
So you can pull open the store and go down to like, I want to buy these time crystals or these characters or whatever.
Or the Terminator.
When you hit A on that to purchase the character, it pops up a short URL and says, go to this URL.
Because on consoles
on your phone
or on
to buy this stuff.
On the other platforms, if you do that in-game, like on PS4, it'll pop you out to the PlayStation store
exactly.
seamlessly.
Yes. This doesn't do that.
Wow.
So like the number of corners that have been cut to get this thing out in this like shoddy shape on top of that, you just look at it and go, why fucking put it out this year?
That is 100%.
Once Doom got pushed, once all this other stuff happened, you're just like, why fucking put it out?
Yeah. I mean, they announced the date, like maybe.
I guess, like, yeah, but like,
they
who
probably
cares?
want to get it as early as possible, just so that way they get in front of the new consoles the best way they
And
can.
the earlier they get it, the sooner they can start fixing it. Because the sooner they get it in more people's hands, they can go like, oh shit, this is fucked.
Like, I had the same thought as you, but also they have a year, you know? Like,
Yeah.
It seems crazy that they felt like they had to do it right now.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. So like, yeah, the number of like usability corners that have been cut to get this thing out in this time frame is like striking. You just look at it and go like, man, what? Like this you almost have to have a flow chart. Now I've been through it and used it for a while. Like I understand what I can and can't do today.
Right. But it's not like
when out of the
buying
box,
an Xbox, plugging it into your TV, connecting it to the internet, and then buying and playing.
And like the information is. And maybe again this will be different because today is launch day, but you know the information was largely non-existent in terms of like, can I do this, yes or no, and if not, when is this something I will be able to do? Will I be able to play games on iOS? Like presumably yes. I assume they probably have written that somewhere. It's just a mess. It's a weird mess, and so. You get past that stuff, whatever. You know, at the end of the day, like you get it hooked up, you get to a point where you can play games, and that's that. You have to use a Chromecast or whatever. I think the Chromecast is just garbage. I think that just conceptually the idea of something with no app interface, but you only use a phone and you have to use Google Home or whatever to cast stuff or try to get things to happen on your Chromecast, I think it's just garbage. I think it's just a terrible way to interface. Some people like that because it doesn't require another remote or whatever. I am not that person. I think the Chromecast conceptually is just bunk.
Also, does that thing have an Ethernet port on it?
Yes,
it does. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on the end of the where you plug it into power. There's just an Ethernet jack there.
Yeah, the power block has like an Ethernet jack in it.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, it's a very odd shape.
Yeah. So
wait, Jeff, you have an Ultra also besides the one you got with the Stadia, right?
I don't.
Oh, okay. I was gonna ask if that power block also came with the Ethernet jack.
I don't know.
I assume it's the same.
Yeah.
Because I think I don't have an Ultra, but I have a Chromecast and it doesn't have anything to plug an Ethernet cord into.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was new to me. Like that was when I was pulling it out of the box. I was looking at it, going like, "Wait a minute, what if I have to wire that?" Because they even suggested maybe wire it up. I'm like, "Oh, I can do that."
Yeah.
Like, this is a Chromecast.
Yeah.
And I looked at it for a while and said, "There's no port on here." And I was like, "Well, what else came in the box?" Oh, okay, it's here. It's all the way down here.
Gotcha.
I just asked because on a service like this where they're trying and you are trying to minimize latency anyway. Like if you really want the absolute optimal experience, you're going to want to plug a hard.
But they say stuff like, "Hey, if you got 5G, connect to 5G." You know, like that's some of the stuff that they're saying in here. So the games.
How do they play?
It has an interface. You create an account. You have a name. My name is Jeff because I registered early. Because fuck it, why not? I should have just tried to get the letter J now that I think about it, but also whatever, who cares? You cannot change your name without contacting them. There's a link there that says, you want to change your name? Contact us. And you have a friends list. There's like party chat options and stuff like that. When you go full screen in Chrome, like you can set audio devices and do that sort of stuff on a PC or a MacBook or whatever. And it has a list of recent players you may have seen while playing the service. That's there.
Does it have rich presence?
It will tell you what game someone on your friends list is playing.
Okay. That's something.
and that sort of stuff. They've got privacy settings and stuff like that. They've got all this stuff that says like achievements coming soon.
Yeah.
And also saying like, we're tracking your achievements. We just don't have a way to show them yet.
So that's one of the things that came out of that Reddit AMA they did.
Right.
But even
like I already knew that because they'd already sent the stuff out. Okay. So like,
but
yes.
even reading that language, I wasn't 100% sure. So they said A, achievements will not be in at launch. B, we will be tracking them even though you can't see them and you will get them retroactively.
Yeah.
But I wasn't even clear if that starts right now or if that starts later and then they come even after that.
I don't know. I don't. I don't know.
There's so much to keep track of.
It doesn't matter.
No, I know, but it's just like the range of details that are hard to nail down with this thing is just like endless.
Right. It just feels, it doesn't feel like something launched by a major company. It feels like something that is like on live. It feels like this, okay, here's a smaller company that got some funding and they're just like fucking seat of their pants trying to make it work, and it's half-assed as hell across like features wise. It's missing a ton of stuff, but I guess the core experience works pretty much as advertised. And that's the thing, is the core experience of it works pretty much as advertised in terms of you can play video games over a video feed. It doesn't look amazing. It does. You're not. If you sit far enough away from the TV, that was the only case where I thought like, oh, this is starting to look like the thing, is when I was using the phone. They sent an Android phone over to use with it, or when I was far away from the television. Up close on like a desktop or anything like that, like especially on desktop and on my MacBook, like that video feed coming out of Chrome, I thought looked pretty bad. Like it's just like the blacks have a gray, like the color depth seems crushed. The
a lot of banding,
stuff like that, a lot of color banding and stuff. Yeah, for sure. That stuff is not as noticeable on a Chromecast or on a phone, but a lot of that depends on how close you are to the screen. Yeah. At no point did I look at it and think like this looks just as good as the real thing. Instead, you just look at it and go like, oh, this is a video, but it's a video I can play. That's interesting. Yeah. And so like that's where it's fascinating, right? Is like, okay, the tech pretty much works. I can get a headshot in Destiny. I can mash out the shitty Mortal Kombat 11 combo I know and not drop it all that often. But you still feel some latency. It doesn't, like I can't sit here and count frames for you or anything like that, but it doesn't feel right.
Oh, well, it feels different. Yeah. It's not as snappy.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like I've got 90 seconds of experience with it because I tried Destiny on your laptop for a minute. And it's like enough to notice, but not enough that you can't get used to it.
Right. It's like the way the kind of I felt like it's like playing a fighting game online with somebody who has really good latency, but there's still latency. Like there's still, it's enough to adjust to, and especially if you're playing something single player where you don't have to worry as much about like timing timing and stuff. Your brain can kind of acclimate to it.
Yes, very much so. Like the one thing that obviously they lose is any kind of like client-side fudging that makes your character more responsive than stuff happening on the server.
Well, they say that there's stuff that they can do to tweak the games in a way that will account for that. Yeah. Like the way they almost described it when I started reading what they put out a while back, that was when they started talking about negative latency, which is a real horseshit kind of term. But some of the predictive stuff they were talking about almost sounded like Carmack's Quake World stuff. In terms of like, oh, we can predict that you'll probably keep walking forward here and start to, make those kind of leaps. And you might see a rollback, you might see a jerk here and there.
That seems like
which I didn't see.
Potential to go wrong.
Like, potentially could go wrong, but
I mean, and other like things like GGPO even use stuff like that, where it will and emulators will kind of be able to predict and then roll back.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, you're waiting for something to come from a server to update what's on your screen. Like there's always that extra layer.
Which is why the idea of a Wi-Fi controller that does, if your controller had to take a hop to this Chromecast and then that talked to the server, maybe that would be even worse. I don't know. Like at least like that made the idea of why there needs to be Wi-Fi on the controller make some kind of sense. It's just weird that it doesn't do that from in most scenarios.
So what games have you played?
I have played Mortal Kombat 11, which is bizarre. So when they sent that out at first, they said, they sent a big long thing of reviewers' notes. Not uncommon for a platform launch, but even just like a game, like, hey, here's some bugs we
know about this.
Yeah, we know about this stuff. There's a patch coming, blah, 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 blah. Mortal Kombat 11, they said, hey, crypt mode doesn't work.
Oh. At all.
That's the implication was, well, they didn't say you can't open it, but they said crypt is not functioning. I'm like, okay. So the first thing I did is go to the crypt.
Right.
and it loads up and you can do it, but like it hitches, it freezes, like the frame rate is fucked, and like it's just all kinds of jacked up. You're like, what the fuck is going on? Like it's bizarre.
It's a crypt. It's spooky.
Yeah, it is really spooky. And the idea would be like, oh well, this is what, a week and a half, 2 weeks before launch or whatever it was. A week and a half, I forget what it was. So presumably that's something it's still that today it's out and the crypt is still like that. It's just weird. So I guess I sent them off a note. I'm like, hey, do you know when this will be fixed? And also, why doesn't it work?
Yeah.
Kind of curious just why a thing like the rest of the game seems to work mostly fine. What's going on? And they said, I'll look into it, get back to you. And haven't heard back yet. So,
okay.
That's a question that like someone in PR is not going to know the answer.
Oh, yeah.
It isn't always going to know the answer to. They have an external firm doing it. Like, whatever, it is what it is. Like, that's not shocking either. But it's just a weird thing to have broken. Like one mode in a game doesn't work. You start to wonder, like, okay, well, I guess they have to port these to Linux and put on a Vulkan renderer. And,
we think. We don't know for sure what that stuff runs on,
that's
but
true.
I would assume that's probably what they're working with.
Is that the part that makes it tricky, that they just haven't optimized that part for their new, like the rendering pipeline that Stadia needs? Or I just don't know.
Yeah, like how well the tech from like server to end user works was the big question going into this. I don't think anybody expected the quality of the ports themselves to be another variable here.
Yeah, so
like you assumed at least on the server blade the game would be running up to spec with other versions of the game, but like then there's this
if not better than. I mean, like that's their whole pitch, right?
And there's this Destiny issue of apparently it.
Right,
and I don't think this is this from Bungie?
Yeah, I want to say I looked around at some of the other coverage that ran on Monday, and some people had dug into, okay, what about the quality of the ports? And so on the Stadia end of things, you have 3 settings about data consumption, and one of those tiers is only available if you're paying them $10 a month, which everyone in right now would be, I assume. Well, they have this Buddy Pass stuff that I guess is going to go out, so there will be some people that maybe are free play. I don't know.
Right. So wait, sorry. There's a standard and a pro.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a free tier that will be more widely available next year, and that'll be 1080, 60.
Yeah.
4K, surround sound, stuff like that will be pro only. Though I never got surround sound on my out of the Chromecast into my receiver. It always just rang up as stereo.
Okay.
That could have been a configuration on my end or whatever, but it did not work. And
it's in the crypt
because
you haven't unlocked it
because
yet.
It's a Chromecast. The settings are fucking completely obfuscated, and it just sucks. So the options you have on the Stadia end are there's a toggle for HDR where you can turn that off if you want, which you would assume that it would detect it on the display and adjust accordingly. I don't even know why that's there. And then you have the 3 tiers of data consumption. You can limit it to 720 at the low end. You can do like an automatic, or you can say, I want the best. Because I enjoy the finer things in life. I often chose, I want the best. Give me the best.
You deserve it, Jeff.
I deserve it.
Yeah. And again, to be clear, the best is the thing you're paying $10 a month for, right? That's the 4K.
And that's the thing that is 4K. Yeah. So then that's cool. But then these ports of these games are apparently not running in 4K. Yeah. Destiny 2 is running at 1080 upscaled to 4K.
Which is just insane.
At settings that are apparently equivalent to medium on the PC.
Right.
Really?
Which is something a very old PC would be able to run.
Like this is especially egregious because, Destiny 2 runs very well on just about anything.
Yeah.
And in some sense, this is kind of your flagship launch game because it's the one you're giving to people that bought in early.
That and Samurai Shodown are the 2 free games right now.
So the idea that thing wouldn't be able to at least go above 1080 for people that are paying for the 4K service is just kind of wild.
Well, it's like you're probably getting a 4K image because you're getting upscaled 4K,
but if it's not rendering.
It's not. It's pretty fucking nuts, man.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat at some point they patched Mortal Kombat 11 on PC to enable 60 frames per second when you're doing fatal blows and fatalities and stuff like that. Those were originally locked at 30. This version of the game will play those out at 60, like a PC version of the game would, and I think it looks mostly fine. Though, again, the crypt thing is fucked up, and also some fatalities and stuff. I just saw like just weird dropping of frames or like just like hitchy on fatalities and just weird moments like that that were inconsistent. It wasn't every time, but but I saw some of that. And that's weird because that game is, it's offline, it's online, but like when you get online, it still goes through all the process of like the same menu that popped up to check it to see if you were like a PlayStation Plus member or not. Like checking player status is one of the screens that pops up. And eventually you get to that same online menu. You can go into all the same lobbies and all the other stuff, and you still search for matches the same way. And it's just, it still responds with like, when you match up with another player, it shows like, okay, you connected to this person. It's like, you're both wired. Like, yeah, no shit. I mean, we might not be, but really, I guess on the Stadia backend, maybe it doesn't matter. It's just...
You might be in the same data center. You might both be running on instances in the same building.
So it's a lot of strange stuff like that where these ports don't feel like they have been fully converted over for Stadia.
Yeah.
They feel like PC ports with the video options stripped out.
Right. Like that's,
you still have gamma, but you don't have resolution. You still have like the some minor settings along those lines that you can adjust in a video menu. But like in Mortal Kombat 11's case, like the top half it's just empty. Which of course, why you wouldn't. They're locking. Ideally, it's all running at the maximum possible, beyond even what a PC could do. But it's not that, And I think that's been the. I think Mortal Kombat and Destiny were the two bigger games that I was able to try pre-release, at length anyway. And we can talk about Red Dead in a minute.
And that is the only explanation I can think of, is that those games, correct me if I'm wrong, are like the only commercial PC releases for those games are for Windows, right? As far as I know, like they never did like.
I don't think they.
There's not a ton of box versions.
Steambox Linux.
There's no Linux port of MK11 or anything like that.
I don't think so. Yeah. So maybe they had to do a lot of new work to get it up and running. Like the Sony stuff is like GL based, right? It's like not quite Vulkan. Or like
they use their own proprietary. Their GNM is the name of their graphics library.
I was going to say maybe there's some work that they can take from that, but I don't know.
I doubt it.
Qloke's name is on Mortal Kombat 11, and they did the PC port of that game. So for whatever that's worth. So those are the two, Destiny and MK11 are the two kind of bigger games that I was able to check out. Like Just Dance 2020 is on the service. It seems to work fine. You have to, though you brought up when we recorded that video that if you were playing that on your phone for some reason, you need to use a phone as a controller.
Yeah.
So you would need two phones.
Okay. That is kind of a strange inclusion.
I got two phones, one for the Stadia, one for the dance.
Okay.
Damn.
Yeah.
What's the name of the exclusive?
Guilt.
Guilt.
GYLT.
You play any more of that?
No. It's just not. It's Tequila Works' new game. It's you're a girl looking for your missing cousin who is getting bullied and has to run away, and it's spooky and.
Like, was it kind of third-person puzzle?
Yeah.
It seemed like it kind of thing.
We played it for the first time in the video and crouched under stuff and ran around. It just didn't do anything at all for me.
Seems like a good game for the platform though. Which is like
slow moving, not a lot of not like Kind seems like an even better game for the platform. That kind of puzzle game, like take a turn type stuff.
But Guilt is eventually supposed to come out on PC, right?
I'm not sure.
We looked it up and didn't see anything that indicated that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it eventually did come elsewhere.
Yeah, I would. Let's see.
And then what else? Red Dead's out.
Red Dead. So I did not play a ton of Red Dead because it's Red Dead. And
you mean the best game of last year?
One of the worst games I've ever played.
A game that would take a lot of time to really get into the meat of it.
A game I have rarely had any desire to play and now have less than none. So I fired it up to check it out. They sent that code out after the fact. We'd already recorded our video at that point. And then they announced some pricing and sent out a Red Dead code.
And I don't know if we've explicitly said it here, but you need to buy all of these games at full price.
That seems to keep shocking people when we say it, so maybe it needs to be said a bit more. But this is not, you do not get free access to these games.
Yeah.
You are buying these games. Destiny and Samurai Showdown, you will get as part by being a...
But even that requires a buy-in.
A pro member. All of it requires a buy-in now because that's what it is. So they have updated the store. I have prices if you care.
I do.
But let's talk about Red Dead real quick.
You're so shallow, Jay.
The one thing I'll say about Red Dead is that game already felt pretty latent, and this this doesn't help. It felt about the same to me. The thing I will say though is that opening sequence of you and Dutch riding in the snow in the dark
with lanterns.
So it's like lit by a lantern in the center of the screen and a snowstorm that is like kind of blowing across that lantern.
Like tailor-made to fuck up the video
Tailor-made
compression.
to fuck up video compression.
So it's like macro blocking all over the place.
And the rest of it is all dark, so you get to see all that. It just looked like shit. It was the worst looking thing I had seen in all of my time with Stadia. Was the opening moments of Red Dead.
Yeah. Were you playing that on a browser or the phone?
That was on a browser.
Can you imagine playing through all of Red Dead Redemption 2 on a phone? Just like...
yeah, that could be some people's reality.
Yeah, that might be. Yeah, that's...
Conceptually, that's kind of cool and interesting.
Yeah,
but you lose so much. That game, you need to take it in on a giant.
Sure, I guess, but also I think the more reality based thing is there's a lot of tutorialized text in that game that is super fucking small on phone.
Sure,
that would be impossible to read in that scenario.
Unless you get the little controller clamp and hold it right up to your face.
Right up to your face. Yeah, you could do that, I guess. But yeah,
some big phones.
So that was my initial impression of Red Dead. Was just geez, why would you do this?
Not the optimal way to play.
No, that just as soon as the screen went to garbage in front of my eyes on the video compression side, I was like, cool, this is a real flagship experience I'm having here.
I would imagine most of that game looks fine.
I'm sure you're right. I'm sure you're right.
That's particular.
But it was a really good example of just here's a thing that just can't do well.
Yeah, that's a very unfortunate.
There's some cases in Destiny too also where I just because it's out now, I was I want to see if there are other people using this thing yet, and I went around Destiny 2 looking for human players, found some people in the tower, went to try to match for Rumble and Gambit and Gambit Prime, found 0 other takers.
It never even got past 1 out of 8
no, it did
on
not.
matchmaking.
I found a strike.
Okay.
I found a strike with one other player, and then someone else joined after the two of us were in there. So I completed a strike, and when we beat the boss, the something mind. Like any Destiny boss, it's something blind. Someone with the drills. You're launching through the drills.
Yes,
anyway, we got to the end of that, and after you beat the boss, the floor drops out and you fall.
Right.
And that whole process of the floor glowing and disappearing and the enemy exploding and all that stuff happening all at once, just chunk, frame rate went to garbage. The video went to garbage. All of it just started looking real terrible. So went to Samurai Shodown to try to find people playing that online because that's the other free game. Didn't find anyone. It's launch day, so maybe people aren't ready to jump online.
People aren't home from work yet.
But
it's hard to find games from that on PlayStation.
Exactly. So
right now,
that just seems like kind of a weird one.
So it's not out on PC yet. There was some weird. I want to say there was some weirdness last week around. Maybe it was a mistranslation or something, but there was an evening there where people thought that because they had initially announced it was coming to PC, and then they didn't name a store, and then they said it's coming to Stadia, and people started thinking wait a minute, is this your PC version, the Stadia version? Because what the fuck, that is not PC. And then they reconfirmed it, saying no, we're bringing it to PC. It's all TBD, no date, no nothing. So they will apparently bring that locally, natively to PC at some point in the future.
Game store.
Somewhere, I don't know. I would not. Look, I don't. Epic seems pretty selective. I don't think Samurai Shodown makes the cut. Honestly.
Really?
Yeah. I super do not.
That game is beloved by a core audience.
No, totally. Yeah, I get it. But I don't think that's. I would be surprised.
Not up to B Simulator standards.
Exactly. Yeah, you want a game like B Simulator to really showcase the power of your store.
We should mention we read off the list of 12 launch games last week. Since that time, they have added another 10.
Sunday night. They sent Sunday night, 6 o'clock
for a Monday launch.
Yeah, no, for a Monday morning embargo.
For a Monday embargo, sure.
But
oh wow, so 12 hours before the embargo.
12 hours before the embargo, and 30-ish hours before the thing was supposed to be available to people. They added 10 more games
for launch day.
For launch day,
available right now.
So there are 22 games available now.
Right,
originally it was supposed to be 12.
Here are the games they've added since last week. Attack on Titan 2 Final Battle.
Oh boy.
Farming Simulator 2019.
Okay.
Final Fantasy 15. Football Manager 2020. Grid 2019. I didn't know they were just putting years on Grid.
They don't.
Now.
It's just called Grid, but it's a reboot of Grid, so maybe they wanted to specify. It's not the old Grid. It's a new Grid.
What if they put the old Grid on?
Let's see. Metro Exodus. NBA 2K20. Rage 2. Trials Rising, Wolfenstein Youngblood. So
All right.
those are the games they have added.
Yeah. Pricing's kind of all over the place. They have a handful of games that are getting various discounts if you're a Stadia Pro member. So like NBA, I want to say is like $30. The first Tomb Raider, meaning the first reboot Tomb Raider, not Tomb Raider, is like $10.
Oh.
But also there's like an Assassin's Creed bundle that's like $120. But then it's got a pro discount down to, I'm going to look. I have the app here. The one true way to buy video games.
Yes.
Store all games.
Yeah.
Okay, so
walk us through the
normally
experience.
Assassin's Creed Odyssey Stadia Ultimate Edition is $120, but you can get it for just $60.
Whoa.
Wow. What a deal.
They've got like 4 versions of Red Dead they're selling with a variety of
Different
bundles.
stuff, yeah.
There's 2 MK11s because one comes with a season pass. There's 2 versions of Trials Rising.
That gets kind of dicey for something like using like the more expensive Red Dead bundles as an example. I think a lot of the stuff you get is Red Dead Online oriented.
Yep.
And not knowing what the size of the community for Red Dead Online is going to be on the service.
Right. Yeah,
like
right.
How can you make an informed purchasing decision there?
Yeah, they got 3 versions of NBA 2K20. The
I feel like they don't want you to make an informed purchase.
Yeah.
It's not great.
Yeah.
Stadia is not great.
It feels like
it's like conceptually hard to recommend. Like I think even if you just walk through it on paper and go like, okay, this is a separate ecosystem where it's going to have separate people in all the online games. The idea of playing with your friends is only a possibility if both of you are fucking all in on Stadia, which it's just hard to imagine anyone being in that bucket right now. It's a lot of leaps of faith, I guess, in that case. Like, yeah, just like you said with the higher tier versions of Red Dead and playing Red Dead Online on Stadia.
Or like buying the character pack in Mortal Kombat, right? Like that's a game that lives or
buying
dies.
Mortal Kombat.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could understand if you and your roommate want to play a bunch of Mortal Kombat or like you want to play the story mode.
that game has a good enough story
So
mode
there's
for
one
that.
there's one well, yeah, I guess story mode's one thing. I was going to say there's one scenario that I haven't tested and I don't actually know the answer to, and that's like you and your roommate want to play a video game. Can you? Like, what's the local multiplayer experience? I would assume if you're using a Chromecast, you need a second Stadia controller, but I don't know if that's even possible. I assume you could plug 2 controllers into a PC and do it that way. But I wonder if you would even be able to use a phone in that situation.
At that point, why are you just playing the PC version?
Well, because it's in theory, the idea is that you don't own a PC.
Right.
You know, like the ideal customer for this is someone who doesn't own any other video games, yet somehow wants to play them, but refuses to make the investment in a console or a PC.
Which, like, we were talking about possibilities, and it's like, maybe people who move around a lot, like people in the military or
travel,
something.
yeah,
like there's, there are people that this is a solution for. It just seems that the solution itself isn't what it could be.
Totally half baked from the look. Like, if this thing just came out, say, 6 or 8 months from now, it could be a completely different story. But
maybe, yeah.
It just feels like they have just felt some compulsion to make sure it came out in 2019 for some reason.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like they have put this out in a way that makes it look bad. Yeah. Like there is a day where they have sewn up some of this. They've cleaned up some of the edges. They've sanded it down a little bit here and there.
The crypt works.
And they launch it, and you're just like, okay, it's not for me, but fine,
it works.
Instead, what they've got is this thing that just like day one, people are like, well, I'm walking away from this. Like I was only barely interested in it to begin with, and then you told me it runs as well as Destiny 2 on Medium in your powerful cloud backbone. It's like it's a bad ad for their cloud services.
Yeah, and these are supposed to be your evangelists, right? These are your founders. These are the people who are like, I'm all in. I'm going to pay $120. I'm going to like hit the ground running with it. Yeah. And it's just like,
and then you get into the like when you really start thinking about it, like once I got past the part of like, oh, this is cool that I can play this in a browser, and really started thinking about it, it was like, the load times in this are just as much as my PC. Like the idea that this is running on some powerful hardware that I could never afford and certainly wouldn't be able to run games on, even if I could, it's not real. It doesn't work that way. And so I think I went in expecting like, okay, well this is going to be really fast startup, or maybe it's going to do something better about like suspending your game. Like, okay, just save my state, and when I come back to this game, boom, it's there, and you have to just like spin it back up, and it's right there, really fast. I feel like the startup times are longer than I thought they would be. In-game load times are pretty much, the ones I did try to like A/B test a little bit between my PC, which has an SSD in it. It was roughly on par with an SSD, which is still better than a console and all that other stuff. But isn't this supposed to be crazy future technology? Isn't this supposed to be something that like is even better than what you can get on PC and consoles? Like in every step, every comparable point, it is worse. Other than I can play it on my phone, and maybe I could play it in a hotel room without having to lug anything around. Like other than those specific like use cases, the experience is markedly worse, not better. Like the pitch is faulty at the core. I think that's the biggest problem with it.
The only other advantage I see there is just not ever having to deal with downloading and patching things. Like that is kind of appealing.
Yeah.
Like it's in no way worth the trade-offs to me, but like the idea, especially on platforms that don't handle that process very well.
Well, hopefully
you'll never see that. You'll never
Right.
sit there watching a percentage meter on a patch you're waiting to download.
I'm trying to think if there are any games that will have consistent updates in a patch format. Like a live game like Destiny, presumably they've got to a point where they can roll things out across the board, and the Halloween event ended on schedule and like all that other stuff. Your characters are in sync. It's your same Destiny character that goes from place to place. But like MK11, for example, like when they launched that game, the PC and Switch versions were way behind on patches. It took them a while to ramp up and get in sync. Like, will the Stadia version be in sync?
Yeah.
Will there be enough players on Stadia for them to care to keep it in sync? Or will they just go like, oh, we'll get to it? And I don't mean to like pick on MK11 in that specific case, though their Switch port was fucked at launch.
Yeah.
And the PC version was not great either at launch. It's fine now. But like across the board, like, our developer is going to allocate the resources to make sure that this Stadia version is in step with the other versions. Or are you going to buy it on Stadia, hear about these updates that other players are getting, and go like, well, I'll get them eventually. Like, I just don't know.
Yeah.
And when I look at what Stadia is and like the potential excitement there would be around it, I look at it and go like, yeah, I would not patch this the same time as the other versions. If I had to make calls like that and had real resources to deal with, that would be the one I'd be like, we'll get to it. So we'll see. I don't know. Like it just, then you get into the data use and the bandwidth cap and all that other stuff. They're saying like, hey, if you've set it 4K, this might use 20 gigs an hour.
Wow. Huh.
So that's, what is that? That's 200 gigs in 10 hours.
Yeah,
so that's
a fifth of your
50 hours of gaming on a 1 terabyte bandwidth cap, assuming you do nothing else with your internet.
Yeah.
Which I burn through that many hours of video gaming on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah.
Plus I use my internet for a lot of other stuff. I mean, I pay my way out of my bandwidth cap, so it's not an issue, but
What kind of other stuff?
hardcore pornography.
Oh yeah, that uses a lot of data.
I'm uploading. I'm shooting it and uploading it.
You're not downloading a lot of Linux ISOs.
No,
It's a
I'm
different
not.
top 3 nuts of the year.
Yeah. We're up for a few awards. Pretty exciting.
Fingers crossed, baby.
Yeah.
Action adventure.
Yeah, very action, very adventure. Eat
Yeah.
fresh.
We'll get to some more stuff related to this in the news around xCloud and stuff like that. Like it seems like this is part of the future of games one way or the other.
Right.
Maybe not the whole future, but like this tech is going to be undeniable. It's just this is like not
This is a bad
this is not
implementation.
putting
of
the
it.
best foot forward
It's a bad service.
for the service.
But the core of it, the can I play a video game over a video stream? Yes.
Yeah.
And the answer was yes with GeForce Now. The answer was yes with for some players with PS4 remote play, depending on where you were, in varying degrees of acceptability, right? Like Sony bought all those Gaikai patents. Sony bought, I want to say, all of the OnLive patents at some point through some other company. PlayStation Now is a thing. GeForce Now is a thing.
Yeah.
Steam streaming to play local multiplayer games over the internet is a thing.
Yeah.
Like the idea of streaming will not go away, and it in some cases works acceptably well. But I feel like almost every decision Google has made around that core concept is suspect to bad, I guess. And some of them aren't decisions, like some of them are just limitations, and presumably that stuff will get better. Well, I guess, I don't know. Do you think in a year's time that version of Destiny 2 is running differently?
Yeah. I don't know.
Or is that just going to be how it is?
I don't know.
Because I'd look at it right now and go like, well, of course they'll get there. And that'll be the sort of stuff that they'll have to fix to truly say that they get there. But I don't think I've seen anything like they ran their thing on Reddit, and I feel like a lot of their answers just seemed very facile. Now it's like it seemed very out of touch with what modern video game players want.
Yes, I agree.
And what matters to them in terms of audiovisual quality and all other stuff. And it seemed.
But that's the thing, though, is their market? I guess their market might not be modern video game.
Yeah, like
players.
that's
be, right?
totally what I'm thinking at this
But
point.
that's the player base they have to try to attract in the early term, because that's the player base that would early adopt anything.
But
right
that's
now.
the only player base that's going to pay $130 to get in on this thing,
Right.
now.
Yeah. So someday when this is like a like, oh, I just download an app and then I can give them $30 and play basketball.
Yeah.
That's a very different thing.
Yes. If 18 months from now, like whatever, I don't want to started to say like some frat bro who only buys 6 games a generation or something like that's pretty stereotypical, but you know what I mean? Like
Totally. Yeah.
somebody who is not like there on day one for a PS5 or a Scarlet
Exactly.
buys like a new, I don't know, let's say LG TV that has some kind of Stadia front end built into it.
Right.
And it's just like, oh, what do you mean I can play GTA 6 without buying a PlayStation 5? All I have to do is buy the game from you? Like, oh,
Exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
You know, like that seems
that's
like
the long-term scenario.
Yeah.
And that's, if I was internally Google right now, like facing like the reviews and you know the people that haven't gotten their codes yet, like the amount of people that are pissed off or just like disappointed in the service
The
right
gifts of the guy hitting the jump button and then the character jumping a half second later.
I would look at that and go like, hey, this is day one. Like, you know, we're not in it for fucking day one. You know, like they had to have known that this was not going to be an especially pleasing service on day one, but they got to start somewhere, I guess.
Yeah.
I would have pushed it back if it was me, but it ain't me.
Yeah, totally.
And maybe if they pushed it back, who knows? Maybe Google would have just killed the whole fucking thing. Maybe like,
no, Google doesn't do.
We got to get it out there before someone pulls the plug, before someone notices what we're doing.
Before the AI that's running this company,
but like they're trying to build studios, they're trying to hire people for all these positions and build games and all this other stuff, and you know they've got to be looking at this as like, okay, right now it's like this, but when we get to this point, when we get to 5G penetration in a meaningful way to where mobile is maybe a different story. Maybe that tips things on bandwidth caps a little bit. Like maybe they get to a point where that's a meaningful service.
I think that'll be the big one. I think like better mobile experience all around is like they're really, I feel like that's the easiest way to sell the play anywhere thing, right? It's like you point to a phone, you're like, you have this with you wherever you are. Now you play every video game ever on it.
The catch though is that by the time they button up those edges and get to a point where that might be a reality, there will be at least one more player in this space, if not several.
Yes.
Like Microsoft is running its xCloud beta. Like they added a bunch of additional games to that. I managed to get into that beta, and it works really well. And
and the decisions they seem to be making around that, we'll get into it with the XO19 stuff. But like, that seems like they're doing the right thing with that thing.
Well, they're doing the right thing for people that play games currently, right? And that's the sort of situation where that is what creates player recommendations and good word of mouth, is if you've got that community of people already playing the games they already own in this different way. I think it's a lot easier for those players to go like, oh, don't get Stadia. Like no matter what Google does in a year, unless they go and acquire a bunch of studios or do a bunch of different ecosystem shit to offer players more choice, everything that Microsoft has said about choice around their offering, you just look at it and go, do this. I could buy the game there, and I don't have to worry if their cloud thing breaks or shuts down. I've still got an option back at home, to play this game the way I always have.
Or even if you don't have that option yet, it's like, hey, I can buy the game now and stream it, and then I'll buy Scarlet in a year when they drop the price, and then I can still have all these games locally.
Yeah, like they've just
so much more flexible.
They just have more answers to the logistical questions around that stuff. Right now, or at least the potential is there for all that stuff in a way that Google just doesn't have that. And so that's the thing, is like, you know, Google launched, it now has total shit word of mouth. So now they're in a hole. And by the time they fix up the service and get to a point where people are like, actually, it's a lot better now, Microsoft will be right there.
You're not wrong.
And
I mean,
presumably, like at least one other player will probably have come along in that time.
Yeah.
You know, Amazon, somebody.
I mean, at the same time, like we've seen enough games and services turn it around, and in fact, I would go as far as to say the game audience kind of loves a redemption story in some ways.
Yeah.
It's not impossible.
Yeah,
But it's
not.
a pretty big hill to climb, I think, at this point.
Yeah,
from the sound of it.
And I think even then, you just get back to that point of just like, okay, well, whatever. I think the Microsoft approach seems to appeal to a wider array of people that also includes the people who only buy one game a year and don't need a box, whereas the Google thing can only appeal to that.
Yeah. I mean, again, I feel like the biggest advantage Google has over Microsoft is like existing inroads into stuff like getting apps into TVs and stuff like that. Like
yeah,
the whole kind of Chromecast, like Google services ecosystem has penetrated like the mainstream entertainment world a little bit better. I feel like. So
Microsoft has a hardware division, like they've done stuff. It's they can sell a low end Xbox streaming only stick or something if they wanted to get there.
Yeah.
But or they could probably do the deals with TV manufacturers.
Yeah, sure.
Too,
like
I guess.
that is entirely possible.
But
for them to also do that.
But yeah, you're right. Google has done that. Google is already in all those places in some form. So
just
that
getting
makes sense.
Stuff in front of people there's some value there, but also the Xbox name curries a whole lot more favor than like people. Fucking everybody knows what Xbox is.
Right.
Everybody knows what Google is too.
If you're a gamer,
has heard of Google,
into gaming, you know that Xbox is like one of the big ones, right? Like if you're into the idea of gaming, I mean, everyone knows.
But I guess like that gets back to a lot of the stuff that people are saying about Google right now is not that far off from what people said about Microsoft when they tried to put out the first Xbox.
Right.
In terms of just like these people know jack shit about video games.
Like the skepticism was overwhelming.
And like they bought up, like Dead or Alive is an exclusive. And like now I'm pissed.
Yeah.
They bought Bungie and turned Halo into this first person shooter for kids.
Yep.
Like there was just all this weird shit.
I was almost one of those people.
Yeah. Like there was all
Halo on PC looked amazing when they first announced it.
There was all this weird shit around Microsoft's entry into the game space that you just looked at and said, these people are fucking have no idea what they're talking about. They are like chest out bravado in a way that just makes them look like completely out of touch.
Yeah.
And like, yes, their box seems more powerful, but also these games don't seem like they're going to move the needle at all, with the exception of Halo and like maybe DOA, because that was at least a name. But like, look, I'm not going to sit here and badmouth Bloodwake, but when Bloodwake was one of the first games they were showing around the Xbox launch, you look at it and go like, dude, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Like, this is a nice looking boat, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But
they stuck it out.
They stuck it out.
And they turned it around.
They ate shit for a long time until things worked out for them. Like, they built their fans.
Yeah.
They did have a more powerful box, and some people valued that. And then by the time the 360 rolled out, they were ready to go.
Yeah.
So if you give Google enough time and enough runway, like they'll figure that shit out.
It's not like they don't have the resources.
Yeah,
It's just the question is whether they commit them
build
or not.
or buy their way into a better position.
Yeah.
And that'll be interesting to watch if nothing else. But like I still just look at it like right now, right here, day one, and it's like this didn't need to happen. Like it just seems bizarre. Or like without all the full story, right? Maybe there's some internal thing like if we don't launch this year, we're not going to launch at all, like I said. But looking at it right now, he's like these are like self-inflicted wounds. Like, you didn't need to do this.
Yeah. But at least don't call it an official launch. Like I don't know, like a beta.
Like Gmail was in beta for like fucking 7 years or something, right? Or however long it was. Like you could, but that's basically what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like $130 is not an impulse purchase. Like that's not insignificant as a buy-in to ask of people. So for what they're getting for that money, it's
right.
Especially when they open pre-orders, like the stuff that the information they had at that time when they said like you better rush and get one. You're like no. I ended up canceling mine.
Yeah,
I mean because they sent one. I don't need two, but also I don't need one.
Damn.
Because I think if I wanted the convenience aspect of it, I would just play on a PC.
Yeah.
And not a Chromecast. So, like, I don't want a Chromecast.
Yeah. Seems like something that we will definitely need to keep an eye on for the foreseeable future. But it's got a ways to go.